My name is Amanda.
And I'm Kristin.
And we are the Exorcisters. So sit back, relax, and let's get creepy. Welcome to Hype Episode 12. And in this Hype episode, which, if you're new here, is an additional episode to our regular schedule, which we talk about brand new releases that are still in theaters. Mm-hmm. We are going to be talking about scary stories to tell in the dark in this installment.
Yes.
Which is actually kind of refreshing. It wasn't like perfect by any means, but it was like much more enjoyable than Annabelle.
Oh, much. Like, this is definitely not one of the worst, and it's not even mediocre. This is a very good movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, which was... I wasn't surprised. I didn't think that if you got Guillermo del Toro in on something, that it was going to be bad, especially visually. Right. Because he's just so over the top and interesting and detailed. Mm-hmm. So I was really excited when I saw this release, especially, obviously, this book series was released in the 80s, and so it was an integral part of a lot of like my childhood, I'm sure yours as well.
Oh my god, yes. It made me want to reread them watching this.
Yeah, me too.
Great.
I looked on Amazon to like rebuy them because I actually didn't own them when I was a child. They were just actually for me, my group of friends, somebody would have them and we would sit in a circle on the playground at recess and read them.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
It wasn't even ever like a at night at sleepovers. It was like we couldn't wait to get out to the playground because we had this little covered awning with some picnic tables and we would all just sit around and read the next one or however many we could in that amount of time. So
I love that. And even the theme music in this is, I didn't catch it in the beginning, but as they played it throughout the whole thing, it's actually a song everybody knows from their childhood. It's a quote-unquote lullaby, but it's a gross lullaby. You know, the worms crawl in, the worms crawl out, and which is in the books. And it's really cool that they put that in there.
Yeah, and I remember as a child being scared of them in the daytime. Like, we went to recess at like 11 o'clock, you know, or 10 o'clock in the morning. It's not like I was only scared of them because we were all sitting in the dark and working ourselves up. It was like they were creepy in broad daylight.
Yes.
So it was a really cool thing to see that brought to screen, and to see them stay so close to the original artwork was really cool.
Yes. It was really cool, but it was also a little jarring at times.
I agree.
Because it didn't feel real, because it looked like artwork. So it's like, it was that uncanny valley almost that people talk about with robots. Like if it's too close, but not close enough, it looks kind of weird. It was like that. Yeah.
They went exactly from 2D to 3D. But when you have like a 2D image, you only get to see the part that the illustrator illustrates.
Exactly.
You don't have what does the back look like in the side views and what does it look like in motion. I thought that the very end, they actually had a real contortionist play the Jangling Man, and it was really good.
It was good, but honestly, just like Mama, watching him do it in real life was so much creepier in the videos of him practicing than it was in the movie. Because you can see, like, his facial features and stuff, they had to CGI that.
Yeah.
Like, it was a mask he had on, but they still had to move it and stuff.
Of course, yeah.
And it's like you took the creepiness of what he was doing and you put... I know you had to, but you put too much CGI on it to make me scared anymore. And I'm like...
On the other hand of that, too, there was a lot of CGI in this movie, but then on the flip side, there was a lot less than a lot of modern horror movies.
Oh, definitely.
Because, like, I've seen some really cool making of. That's what something they did as far as marketing for this movie. They did a lot of was, like, behind the scenes because the producers and everyone in on this movie wanted the visuals to be spot on, and they wanted them to move as realistically as possible. Yeah. And so everything was done by a human being with some computer added on too, which is
cool. The human being part was so creepy. Oh my god. I've told you in the past, like, watching the Mama footage of him actually doing it is so much creepier than the movie to me. And that's how this was.
Yeah, I remember one of the first things you told me about, like, we were like, let's watch scary stuff on YouTube, just like real videos or whatever, like real ghosts caught on tape, or sometimes that gets you in a creepier mood faster than a movie will, because this could be faked for YouTube, of course, but it looks more real. So it's easier to believe that it is. And one of the things you were like, you have to watch this.
I can't even watch it all the way through by myself.
It was the contortionist video.
Oh my god. Look it up, you guys. It's so freaking creepy and amazing that someone can do that with their body, but so creepy.
Yeah. It's just contortionist for Mama, I think, and you'll find it.
Yes. So good.
They had to come up with a story to house these scary stories.
Yeah.
Which, and obviously Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a bunch of scary stories, like a collection of scary stories. So it's not like they had a narrative to follow through with all of these scary stories.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, this was done really well. This is not like Annabelle Comes Home in that it's following Goosebumps in a negative way. But this is just Goosebumps again.
Right, yes.
That's all it is.
Something
where people actually get killed.
Yes. Something that I said to, I don't remember who I was talking to, but they asked what I thought. And I was like, the story was very predictable. It was very cliche. It was very horror movie. Like, you know.
And honestly, I'm not saying you hate them, but you kind of don't really care about the characters. Like, more so than other movies, definitely. But also, I'm kind of like, I don't really care.
You kind of, in my opinion, cared about two of them. You cared about the main character, Stella, and you cared about her boyfriend character or love interest.
Because I actually didn't even care about Stella. I really did not care. They tried to give you some backstory about her mom, and it's just like, it wasn't even needed. They didn't use it for anything like they usually do in a movie, and you're just like, why?
Yeah. I think I cared about her more than I cared about, like, her auxiliary friends, I guess I would say. But they didn't do a ton of character development. They gave you some side stories on characters they were trying to harp on the most, like the two, Stella and her boyfriend, or Ramon.
Yeah.
But they didn't do a great job of making you feel like you would be devastated if something happened to them.
Yeah, even, like, I agreed with you, I care about Ramon. I was still like, okay, I'm fine if he dies.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
Whatever.
Like, yeah, it's whatever. Exactly. It's whatever. It's whatever. What I think most of us are here for anyways is to see how they bring these stories to life.
Yes.
And how they move. So the characters are kind of like and maybe they understood that. Maybe they understood that we don't have to develop these characters quite as much because people aren't going to see the adventures of Stella and her friends.
Right. Which is fair.
Yeah.
Except I know we've heard other reviews about this, and I kind of agree. Like, if you're going to have such a weak storyline, then put in more monsters.
Right. Yeah.
I would have been fine with you doubling the cast to have them go quick with more stories.
To be even more Goosebumps.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But basically the plot is, spoilers, heads up, go see the movie and then come back and listen if you've already made it through this point without seeing
see
it.
If you guys care, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, it's not one where we're like, don't even go see it. So the plot is, Stella is this girl being raised by a single father. Her and her friends are kind of the outcasts, or it's kind of like another Losers Club.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
From it, but
which I loved, because I was the only girl in a group of guy friends, and that was always so much fun. We were like the outsiders, so that was fun.
Yeah. And so they are kind of the weird, creepy kids. It's Halloween night in 1968.
She's such a creepy bitch, and I love her. She's got all these posters of
Lon
old
Chaney
horror movies.
Yeah, because this is the 60s. And so even at the drive-in in this movie, they're playing Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
And it's obscure ones. Like, there's Frankenstein's daughter or something poster in her room, and I'm like, that's cool.
I think I leaned over to you and I was like, that's our bitch.
Exactly.
Like, and we would be her friend. So there's this haunted house in this town that nobody goes into because they had to lock it up, and it belonged to the Bellows family, and they had a daughter. Her name was Sarah Bellows, and she was locked in the basement. She was weird. She was some sort of albino. They kept her locked away, and basically all of these legends started about her, as they do, about her being a witch and into black magic and all of these things. And so Halloween night, the group of kids goes and they find where she was locked in the basement, and they pull out this book. And the cheesiest line in the movie is, "You don't read the book. The book reads you."
Yeah,
but that's
it
basically
really was.
what is happening.
Which is still the confusing part. I looked at you and said that too. Once again, we're in spoiler area, so prepare. There's a point where the kids start realizing that they know the stories. So you can get, like, one of them says, "My dad told me this." Okay, so kids are supposed to go to Sarah Bellows and she tells them scary stories, but then she kills them with the scary story. So how are these parents able to tell their kids these stories without dying? I'm very confused about that.
Maybe they're just stories that are kind of like twists on folklore that are very well known, and Sarah just happens to know them and play on that, but she has to put her own, like, words and twist on it.
Or, actually, talking about it right now, I just had, like, an epiphany. Maybe, because they don't die right away, maybe another kid heard the story, told his dad.
Maybe.
And the other kid had to die, but his dad could live. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Idea.
Yeah, for sure. It's so interesting because we talk about, like, the Losers Club, and you know how much I love it, but it's very similar in that Pennywise kind of takes on the form of whatever scares you, and so do these monsters in a way.
It's definitely a boggart type
basically
thing.
Yeah, exactly. And they were written around the same time in the 80s. One for children, one not for children.
Right.
One very much not for children. So they get this book, and obviously you're like, don't take the fucking book, and she takes the fucking book. And then these stories start appearing, and they like write themselves right in front of her, so she can see Sarah writing it, and it's in blood.
Question about that really quick.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's written in blood, and she like moves her thumb over it to see that it's fresh. I get her doing it the first time. Why the fuck did the cop do it the second time? Why does he care if it's fresh? Why did he even want to try it?
To see if she was lying, I guess.
I'm very confused about that.
I don't know. I guess, he thinks that she's bullshitting, and now he has an opportunity to test her on it. So he does. There's also this, of course, with any group of losers, you've got a group of antagonists, bullies, jocks, usually, if you will.
Fucking psychos. Just like Stephen King stuff, where you always have the bully
Like
that's going to
Henry.
go too far to kill you.
Yeah. So there is this bully, and his name is Tommy, and he has this scarecrow on his property, which is where we get the scarecrow.
Can we talk about Tommy for just a second?
Yes.
Okay. So they do make a comment that he's been drinking a lot, and he's getting ready to go off to Vietnam. So that's the other plot in this whole thing is Vietnam. So I get that. I get maybe why he's such an asshole if he's scared that he's going to go die. I can kind of understand that. But I will say that this is going to be me getting on a soapbox really quick, but it'll be fast and it'll be over, you guys. Really quick. What we did to the guys in Vietnam really is messed up. Like, they came back and we spit on them in the streets. They still don't have insurance for, like, Agent Orange. Things that we did to them, they still can't get covered by the VA. So we did some fucked up shit. And please, somebody out there, do something for these vets. Like, if you want to do a movie, if you want to do a story, please do something. But I don't think this was the way to do it. Because I didn't really care. Like, honestly, it was almost annoying because it was in every single scene they would switch it.
It was very political.
Yes, somebody was watching the TV or somebody
and
was
it was
talking
election
about it.
night, like one night.
There's so much stuff in it, and I'm not saying you can't have politics in it. I'm just saying that I don't know exactly what they did wrong, because there's political pieces that I agree with that I felt it all the way through. This one I didn't. I was almost annoyed.
Yeah.
That's my only problem.
Maybe you were annoyed because they meant to do something that they just weren't effective with doing.
That's probably exactly why I was
you were trying to
annoyed.
piece together, like, why is this relevant? There were a couple things. Vietnam aside, just about the characters and their, like, who they were and their backstories that were told and then just never came back around.
Exactly.
I'm kind of thinking what they did, maybe not with the Vietnam thing, but with some of these is they're going to make another one.
Yeah,
and they're going to bring more of the
already
monsters.
talked about
Oh, okay.
what you should expect in 2, and I'm like,
see, I didn't know that.
that's
Yeah.
fine, but I would rather you have made an amazingly perfect one here.
That didn't need a sequel.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at the end, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but 2 kids of the friend group and then Tommy, the bully, end up disappearing. And it's kind of up in the air whether they're dead or just like in some sort of weird dimension that they can't, like the Upside Down, if you watch Stranger Things. Yeah. So at the end, it looks like the surviving characters, with the exception of Ramon, who gets shipped off to Vietnam, are going to try to figure out how to get them back.
Right.
Which is weird to me, though, because they're going away from where Sarah Bellows was, who did all this. So where are they going to?
That's my confusion, too. Or maybe, because they have... So one of the girls goes crazy because she's attacked by spiders, which fair, I would too. I'd be in a
They crawled out
Jesus
of her
Christ.
skin,
And there's
which you've seen in the trailer.
Billions of them.
Yeah.
I would go insane too. But maybe they were taking her from the hospital home?
Maybe. Possibly.
Idea? I don't know.
The only thing
There's a lot of stuff where you just have to make ideas.
Yeah. It almost looked like their truck was full of stuff, though, in the back.
That's true. That's true.
So it looked like they were going to something, but you could be totally right.
Weird.
It's, But it does leave it very open-ended for a sequel, which was pretty blatant. Because she's like, we're going to find them, or they're not, or she said something about like not believing they're dead.
We'll see you in 1 to 2 years. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm excited about in the respect that I just want to see, they did a pretty good job, I felt, with the monsters, taking them from the stories that we know and love to the screen. And I think it would be cool to see, because there aren't just 3 monsters in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
There's so many. There's 3 books of just tons of pages.
Exactly. So it'll be cool if they keep going. My fear is they never really nail down a really good storyline, and so we just go back to see what they did with the monsters, and that's kind of dangerous territory, I think, because you can crank out a shit movie. It's kind of like what the Conjuring universe did, where people will just be loyal to your franchise because you've given them what they've wanted in the past, and so they just continue to go. Or what's sad too is you take such an iconic book series for children and you exploit it until you've killed it, which that's not what they did here. I'm just saying it could open the door to it in the future, which is a little concerning.
Definitely.
But it also could open up a really awesome world if they keep the right people on board to do it.
That's what I was going to say. If Guillermo del Toro stays with it, I think it could be great. Because he makes creepy shit that we fucking love. Stick with it.
Exactly.
And all he did was produced it. He didn't even really direct it or anything. It still felt like him.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So these stories start popping up, and the first story that's written the night she gets the book is about Tommy, who's the bully. And what was interesting to me, like, maybe I'm wrong, but haven't we known driving drunk is, like, not good even, like, in the 60s?
I mean, people did it all, but that was when women were still drinking while pregnant.
That's true. Yeah. So Tommy comes home and his mom's all pissed off at him. It's like, you need to get the eggs and take them to the neighbor or whatever. And this is when we get the scarecrow coming to life.
I couldn't imagine trying to gather eggs to take to someone while drunk.
And it's pitch black.
I'd be like, that is not happening tonight. I don't have the dexterity for that. Sorry.
They're getting the eggs in the morning. And that's when you eat breakfast anyways.
Exactly.
But he is walking through the cornfields, and Harold, the scarecrow, comes to life, and he's pretty creepy.
Yeah, he is.
And this was interesting because Harold comes to life, stabs him with a pitchfork, but instead of bleeding, you just see all this straw coming out of him and all this hay.
It was so good. That was so well done.
I agree. And so he just turns into a scarecrow, and then he's missing. The town can't find him. So there's your first one. And then, of course, Stella's like, it's coming true. It wrote about Tommy. Now he's missing. And her friends at first are like, you're crazy. It's fine. But then, of course, they all come around. And the next story is their friend Augie. And this is the toe.
Okay, I still stand with. So there's a toe in the soup, right? Which is fine. That's a children's book. It's a children's story.
Yeah, yeah.
What does his mother cook that he thinks it's okay that there's a toe in that soup?
He didn't very long.
Not very long, but still, he like had a full-on toe on his spoon. There's no way you don't know that's a fucking toe.
That's a big carrot. So, of course, he freaks out because he does realize that there's a toe. And also, Stella is calling him because she's reading this story as it's being written and telling him everything that's about to happen. And at first, he's like, whatever. But then he's like, oh, shit, it is happening. And then he hides in his room under a bed. And then this creature, where's my toe, or who has my toe, or whatever, comes and drags him away, and he disappears.
But it's under the bed with him.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
He doesn't see it walk in.
Yeah, I have to say, it's honestly been a really long... I can't even remember if there has been a movie this year. I don't think there has, at least this year. I don't remember the last movie that did make me back up in my seat and like watch through my fingers, because I knew there was a jump scare coming and I wasn't rolling my eyes at it. Because like in Annabelle, Annabelle Comes Home, there was some jump scares and you expected them, but it wasn't ones that I was like, oh god, oh god, oh god. It was more like, and cue here.
Exactly.
This one, like, yeah, I knew it was coming, but I was still like, oh god, oh god, oh god,
it's still
oh
not
god.
What you want to see. You're like, oh no, please don't.
Yeah, it was actually enjoyable as a horror fan. Like, I don't go to horror movies because I want to be like, and cue the jump scare and cue the music and all this stuff. Like, and yes, it wasn't necessarily not predictable, but it was still, I thought they did a really good job of building tension, which I think a lot of horror movies are lacking because they just rely on sound mixing so much. Whereas like, it's loud, it's quiet, and there's going to be a jump scare. This one didn't do as much of that, which I appreciated. It actually built some good tension to where I was like, no. So I appreciated that a lot, especially for a PG-13 13 movie.
Yeah, definitely.
This would be, when I was a kid, this would have been my shit. Like, if you have kids that are getting into horror, this one is not overly violent. Mm-mm. They just disappear.
Exactly. Is there even really any blood?
Not that I really, just what they're writing in, and she nicks herself in the last scene on purpose to write in her blood. Yeah.
So it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So now Augie's gone, and Stella realizes, like, she already kind of did, but now she's like, for sure this is happening. Mm-hmm. She calls Ramon, her friend Chuck, who's another in this group, and then Chuck's sister Ruth.
He's our comedy relief.
Yes.
Chuck.
Yep. And calls them all together to actually an empty drive-in to tell them that this is happening. And Chuck kind of believes it, but doesn't really want to. And Ruth is just like, this is stupid. But she's got this pimple on her face.
It ain't a pimple.
Yep. And that night she is performing. Actually, it was Bye Bye Birdie, I think, at the high school. And that night she's in costume ready to go, and Stella sees another, while they're kind of doing research, we have this research montage, of course. Who is Sarah Bellows? Mm-hmm. You know, we have to figure out, we know who Sarah Bellows is, but we don't really know that much about her because she was kept locked away. So they go to the local paper and they're digging through the archives looking for her, and while they're doing that, a story called The Red Spot is being written in the book, and that is Chuck's sister Ruth's story. And in the trailers you see a spider leg pop out of her face from this like boil thing that she has, and it does the same thing in the movie, obviously, but it doesn't just release a spider, it releases like a portal of spiders.
So many, and she keeps getting bit, and oh god, it's horrible.
Yep.
I would have dunked my face in a fucking toilet or something.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they end up throwing water on her to nasty mopped water, but they throw water on her.
I mean, it's that or death, so bring on the mop water.
But they're able to get to her before she is killed or disappears. You see her wheeled out on a stretcher, and that's really all you see of her until the very, very end. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like they stopped it.
Right.
They got there in time, so I don't know if this is something that just happens when somebody's alone, but then again, in the jail later, there's two of them, and it happens, so not quite sure. But you do get a really cool spider scene, and then, of course, they're freaking out, and they need to go. They realize that Sarah Bellows was institutionalized by her own family, so this is pre-HIPAA. They go to the insane asylum to get her records, and they have to sneak down into the red room in order to get her records. And Chuck is like, he's had this dream about this red room a couple times, which he just kind of throws out there.
Exactly.
And so when he hears, like, they have to go to the red room, he's like, nope, ain't doing it. And, of course, this is where the group splits up, which is the worst idea.
Yeah.
This is where you get the pale lady, because he's down in these hallways that are deserted in this insane asylum, and they know that there are kids down there, and so they set the alarm, and the lights all turn red.
Yes.
And then it's creepy because she's walking towards him, but anytime he turns, she's the same distance away from them, just down that hallway. So she's at every single angle coming at him.
I will say this scene of seeing her just slowly come to him was too long. It took tension away eventually.
I agree. And then she just kind of hugged him, and he absorbed into her and disappeared.
Like, she looked really creepy in the trailers, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. And then it took so long, and by the time she's ready at him and you think something bad's going to happen, you're just like, just do what you're going to do. I'm done.
I agree with that, yeah. It was probably like the whole running away from the same thing, probably about a 5-minute scene. Yeah. Which is long for...
A little too long.
For like a slow chase, basically. But while Chuck is getting, like, eaten, they find out that Sarah's own brother was doing electroshock therapy on her, and all these kids in the community were dying, and everybody was blaming it on Sarah. You find out it was actually her family poisoning these kids. Does it say why they were poisoning kids?
It was a runoff from the factory that was getting in the water. It was an accidental poisoning, but she knew about it, and they were trying to cover it up.
I missed that for some reason. I don't know why. But Sarah knew that was happening, and they kept trying to say, tell us the truth or we're going to shock you. Yeah. You say you killed the kids, because she was an easy scapegoat. So they found out all this terrible stuff that happened to Sarah in her lifetime to make her this angry, vengeful, full of rage spirit that she is, or witch, or whatever you want to call her. And actually, this is Stella and Ramon are taken into custody here because they get caught. Yeah. Looking for Chuck. They find like something of his. It's a pin that we've seen in a previous scene. And so they get thrown in jail. And of course, the cops don't believe him, and here you find out that Ramon, because he's an out-of-towner, he's kind of been living in his car and just like randomly made friends with them. you find out that he dodged the draft.
Which I'm very confused. These kids do not look old enough for this to be a thing.
I think they were getting at their seniors, but they do look like really young.
Yeah, they really do. Like, there are times when she looks like she's about 10, but okay, we can slough that off.
Right.
Because teenagers always look older on TV than they actually are.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't look at him and go 18. I go, I don't know, maybe 15, 16?
I would have said like 16, 17.
Yeah.
18 seemed a little old.
Yeah, right?
But, so we find out that he's dodged the draft, but that's really all they say about that. And that night, of course, they're in 2 separate jail cells, but they're right next to each other. And this is when you get another story being written, and this time it's Ramone's story, because of course we're saving Stella for last, because she's the one that took the book and pissed off Sarah Bellows. So he realizes quickly what this thing is. So these body parts start falling down the chimney in the police station, and it's the Jangly Man. Which was pretty creepy. I mean, there was a lot of the Jangly Man, though. But he did run really fast, which was terrifying.
Yeah, true.
He ran, like, as quick as that car was going.
Yeah, if we saw more of him actually, like, on all fours, it was pretty creepy. But there were times when it would just go back to Ramone in the car, and you're like, can you please show me the creepy part?
Right, exactly. They actually... So it kills the police chief.
Kills the fuck out of him. Snaps his neck so hard.
Yeah, no blood.
Yeah, no
Snaps
blood.
his neck. Then it starts trying to get at Ramone through the jail cell, and it can detach parts of its body. So it can pretty much get anywhere it wants to go, as long as, like, its arm and head and torso can fit through.
Right.
And it can just reassemble. And so there's this whole scene of them trying to get out of the jail cell, and then they do. And then Stella runs to Sarah Bellows to try to stop this. And Ramone is trying to escape with a cop cruiser.
Yeah.
And he's able to thwart it for a little while, enough to wreck the car, pin it against something.
A trash truck.
Yeah, and get back to Stella. And so then Stella and Ramone are in this house together, and Stella is kind of taken into this kind of alternative reality or dimension where she is Sarah Bellows, seeing what Sarah Bellows saw when her family was looking for her because she escaped the basement.
Which is pretty fucked up.
Yeah, it was. I wish we had gotten more Sarah Bellows.
Yes, I feel like they had too many storylines that they wanted to put time into, whereas all we really needed was a couple main ones.
Yeah, because I thought seeing Sarah's world through her eyes and her time was really interesting, and that's actually when I got the most invested in the story outside of the monsters.
I agree. I completely agree.
Because you see her family, like, looking for her and how terrified she is, and she's hiding under the dining table, and
they've got like straps that they're chasing after her with.
And it's horrible that this is her family. It's not like she's running from monsters.
And it's all because she's an albino. Like, seriously? It's fucked up.
So, of course, she is disoriented because she's Sarah, but she's Stella. And you're just kind of getting this back and forth between Ramona's being chased still.
In the same house.
They're just in 2 different dimensions. So they can kind of feel each other, but they obviously cannot talk to each other. So Stella makes it down into the basement where Sarah lived. Her unfortunate life. And she basically... The ending was very cliche to me, because Sarah is kind of like a ghost not at rest, or like a spirit that's not at rest. And then Stella basically calls her out and says, I know it wasn't you that poisoned the kids. I know you were innocent. I know they were just blaming it on you. I know you only said it because they were torturing you, all this stuff. And she's like, you should let it go. I'll tell your story. And then that ends it.
Yeah, that's the end.
The Jangle Man disintegrates, and it doesn't really go back to normal because the friends she's lost are still lost.
Yeah. She writes a story about Sarah Bellows. Ramone goes off to Vietnam. And we go get the girl from the insane asylum and go hunt other people. It's the end.
Yeah. So, it was good. I wasn't disappointed when I left. I wasn't like, oh my god, that was the best movie I've seen in forever. But it was good. I appreciated the artwork a lot. And the visuals a lot. The story was lackluster, but again, kind of forgivable, because as someone who read these books as a child, I really wanted to see how they were going to bring those monsters to life. I almost think this may have been cooler. It would have to be a really good one. It couldn't just be like done by like AMC or something. It would have to be like a Netflix or an HBO. kind of like Lore,
Oh, for sure.
which each one had their own episode, but with the same amount of effort into the visuals as the movie had.
Like Goosebumps.
Del
Or
Toro,
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, Del
or-
Toro could still do a good show,
Yes.
you know. So I kind of feel like that may have been a better
I would
move in the
for
long
sure
run.
watch that show.
Me too.
That'd be great.
Yeah. But it was still really good. I'd probably give it a 3.5 out of 5, kind of middle of the road for me, but still a good time, and I enjoyed it, and I wasn't upset about spending my money on it. So
Yeah, I don't do halves like you, so
Yeah.
I'd probably round up to a 4 out of 5. It
Yeah.
wasn't the best thing ever. It's not like Us or Midsummer where I
No.
was blown.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was
Yeah.
great. I'd probably watch it again.
I would too. Especially, it's a really good, I think, because it's on Halloween night.
It feels like fall.
Really good October movie.
Definitely.
Yeah, like if you want to watch some horror, like even before we did the podcast where we just filled our schedule with fun horror movies to watch, I could see like if this was on, I would even like put in the Blu-ray and
Definitely.
put up my Halloween decorations to
While
it.
it's on, absolutely. Just like
Kind of
that.
like Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah.
Or something like that, you know.
Exactly.
Well, thank you guys for joining us for this little bonus episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you enjoy the movie as well. You can send us your thoughts on any of our social medias or emails. We'd love to hear what you think if you go see it, especially on these newer movies. I love to
definitely.
hear your thoughts. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Exorcisters Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at The Exorcisters, and you can always email us at theexorcisters@gmail.com and check out our website at exorcisters.com.
And until next time, stay creepy.